You are not here by accident. You are here because you seek something more than silence. You seek peace. You seek truths that can hold you up, even in the moments when everything around you feels uncertain. Night, with its calm and its mystery, is the perfect stage for this journey. When the world's noise fades, when the lights dim and the body begins to surrender to rest, the mind opens, the heart grows more receptive, and what in the day seems impossible to hear, in the night's stillness reveals itself gently. I want you to think for a moment about those who walked before us, the Stoic sages. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who bore the weight of Rome, wrote at night in his meditations. It was in those silent hours that he could speak with himself, ask whether he had been just, brave, wise, and remind himself that despite power, he was also fragile, also human. Seneca, for his part, saw the day as an inevitable battle. Each day brought tensions, commitments, trials, but when night fell, he found in silence an examination. He reviewed his actions, his thoughts, and in that nightly reflection, he found an order that gave him peace. And Epictetus, the slave who became a teacher of freedom, taught that night was not only for rest, but for training the mind's discipline. In the silence, he said, one could recognize what depended on oneself and what one must release without clinging to what one cannot control. This audio you are listening to is not light entertainment. It does not aim to distract you or fill the void with empty words. This space is companionship. It is guidance. It is a seed you will plant now in the serenity of the night, and that will grow little by little in your thoughts, accompanying you tomorrow when the sun rises again. Allow yourself to lower your defenses. You do not have to fight. You do not have to prove anything in this instant. Only listen. Only let yourself be carried by these reflections that are not foreign, but universal. Truths that have accompanied generations before you, and that now come to accompany you. Breathe deeply. Feel how your body settles where you are. Notice the weight of your eyelids, the calm that slowly begins to settle in. Now imagine a serene lake lit by the moon. The water is still, so tranquil it reflects the sky as if it were a perfect mirror. There is no wind, no agitation, and only calm. That is how I want your mind to feel tonight, clear, serene, deep like that silent lake. Time is your most valuable resource. Think for a moment about what we value most in life. Many will say money, because it allows buying, traveling, having comforts. Others will say possessions, a house, a car, a cherished object that seems to represent security. But the Stoic sages always pointed to something else. The most valuable thing we possess is time. Because money, if you lose it, you can recover it. An object, if it breaks, can be replaced. A house, even if it disappears, can be rebuilt. But a minute that slips away, that never returns. Every instant that passes is a piece of life that goes, and no matter how much power you have, no matter how many resources you gather, no one can give it back to you. Seneca said it with a clarity that pierces the centuries. It is not that we have little time, but that we waste much. We do not live in a shortage of hours, but in the squandering of them. Distracted, we waste what we should guard like a treasure. Think about how we often spend our days, whole hours sliding a finger across a phone screen, watching images we will not remember, consuming information that leaves no trace. Promises we make ourselves to start the important thing tomorrow, trusting there will always be a tomorrow available. We wait for the perfect moment, the ideal conditions, as if time would stop to wait for us. And meanwhile, it escapes. Imagine an invisible hourglass. Each grain that falls represents a moment of your life. You do not see it, but it is there, always moving, falling without stopping, and what has already gone will never return. How many grains do we let fall without even having looked at them, without having used them? Anguish appears when we live as if time were infinite. When we believe we have endless reserves of days, we become careless. We allow routine to turn into a ghost, conversations to lack presence, and important moments to pass as if they were secondary. But peace appears when we remember the opposite, that every instant counts, that today, here and now, is a loan that was not guaranteed, that opening your eyes this morning was already a gift, and that what you have in this moment is all you truly possess. The Stoics invited us to think about time not with fear but with respect. It is not about becoming obsessed, living in a rush, but about living with awareness. If you knew your life were limited, would you still dedicate hours to what does not fulfill you? Would you keep postponing what truly matters? Remember, it is not a question of cramming the calendar, but of filling what you do with meaning. Sometimes we think using time well means doing more things, but in reality it means living better what we do. Speaking with presence, listening with attention, resting with gratitude, working with purpose. You do not control how much sand remains in your hourglass, but you do have power over how you live each falling grain. And that, for the Stoics, is the essence of wisdom. To care for time as you would care for your very life. Let me leave you with a question I want to echo in your heart tonight. What would you do differently if you remembered that today is a borrowed day, not a guaranteed one? The present as the only real territory. Think for a moment about where your mind lives most of the time. Many times it is trapped in memories. What you did, what you failed to do, what someone said, a decision you made and can no longer change. Other times it runs ahead into the future, imagining scenarios, worrying about what could go wrong, building possibilities that do not yet exist. The past is memory, the future is imagination, and both are shadows. The only place where life truly exists is here now, in this instant in which you are breathing. Marcus Aurelius summed it up in a simple, forceful line. A man's life is what his thoughts make of it. If your thinking clings to what has already passed, you live in a museum. If your mind runs too far ahead, you live in a dream without shape. But when you choose to inhabit the present, when you concentrate your attention on this moment, you recover the power to act, to feel, to transform. Look at everyday examples. How many times have you eaten without tasting your food because you were checking your phone? The food was there with its aroma, its texture, its flavor, but your mind was elsewhere. Or perhaps you went out for a walk and returned without remembering the way because you were thinking about what you would do tomorrow. The landscape was there, the streets, the air, the daylight, but your mind was projected toward a future that does not yet exist. Living outside the present is like being a traveler who, instead of looking at the landscape, obsesses over the map. The map helps, yes, but it is not the experience. The map has no colors, no smells, no sounds. The map only points but never lets you feel. And many of us spend life with our eyes fixed on the map, losing the landscape before us. The present is not always perfect. Sometimes it is full of difficulties, intense emotions, challenges. But it is the only real thing. It is the only place where you can decide, act, respond. Everything else is illusion. The Stoics understood this well. It was not about denying the past or ignoring the future, but giving them their place, the past as teaching, not as prison, the future as planning, not as obsession, but the present. The present is sacred ground where all of life is played out. If you allow yourself to be here and now, you discover something surprising. Anxiety decreases. Because anxiety is born from wanting to control a future that does not yet exist. And if you anchor yourself in this instant, the anguish dissolves. The gift of this moment is that it does not need to be another. As it is, it contains life. If you recognize it, even the smallest details become extraordinary. The air entering your lungs, the weight of your body upon the bed, the sounds floating in the room. I want to invite you now to a small exercise. Close your eyes gently. Let your breathing flow without forcing it. Now notice 3 sounds present around you. Perhaps the wind, a distant noise, or simply silence itself. Then bring your attention to the contact of your body with the bed. Feel how the surface supports you without you having to do anything. Lastly, repeat inwardly like an inner whisper, I am here now. That is your refuge. That is your true territory. Accept what you do not control. Imagine standing before the sea. The waves come one after another, unstoppable. You can try to stop them with your hands, shout at them not to advance, beg them to calm down, but the sea does not listen. The more you fight it, the more exhausted you become. Yet if you choose to float, if you choose to move with its rhythm, you discover you do not need to struggle. You can move forward without wearing yourself out. So it is with life. Many times our suffering does not come from what happens, but from what we demand should happen. It is not the fact itself, but the resistance we put up against the inevitable. We cling to controlling what was never in our hands. The weather, others' opinions, health that changes, destiny's unexpected turns, and in that clinging we add weight to our pain. Epictetus put it with a clarity that still resonates. Do not seek to have events happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do, and you will go well. To accept does not mean to resign or stop acting. It means recognizing where your power ends and where what does not depend on you begins. Think about this simple story. A person loses a job from one day to the next. First comes denial. This cannot be happening, it's not fair. Then anger appears at the company, at the situation, at oneself. That whirlwind of emotions consumes energy, but does not change the facts. With time, that person decides to accept. They breathe, look at the situation clearly, and understand. I can no longer change what happened, but I can decide what to do now. And then a new path arises, perhaps work more aligned with their values, perhaps a needed pause to rethink priorities. Acceptance opens space for what resistance kept shut. Trying to control the uncontrollable is like trying to stop a storm with your hands. You only tire yourself out and get even wetter. But if you learn to take shelter, to wait, to accept that the water will fall until it ends, then the storm ceases to be an enemy and becomes part of the landscape. Acceptance is not surrender. Surrender says, I can do nothing at all. Acceptance is different. It is recognizing where to place the strength you do have. You cannot prevent someone from criticizing you, but you can decide how you respond. You cannot control whether tomorrow brings sun or rain, but you can choose how to use the day under that circumstance. You cannot stop time from advancing, but you can choose how to live it. The Stoics did not seek to eliminate difficulties, but to turn them into teachers. When you accept the inevitable, you free energy for what truly matters. Your character, your actions, your thoughts. You discover there is peace in letting go of unnecessary weight. I want to leave you with this question to carry silently as sleep approaches. What are you carrying today that in truth does not depend on you? Could you let it drop tonight like someone releasing a stone to the bottom of the sea? Your mind is the filter of reality. Everything you live passes first through an invisible filter, your mind. It is not the facts that wound you, but the interpretation you make of them. It is not reality that steals your peace, but the meaning you attribute to it. Two people can go through exactly the same situation and yet inhabit completely different worlds. Imagine a delayed flight. For one person, that delay is a tragedy. They protest, grow irritated, feel like victims of injustice. Their thoughts turn those waiting hours into torment. For another, the very same delay is an opportunity. They open a book, write ideas, take a break. The fact is identical, but the experience is radically different. Think about receiving criticism. One person takes it as a personal wound. They attack me, belittle me. I am worth nothing. The criticism becomes poison because the mind interprets it as a blow. Another person hears it as teaching. What can I learn from this? Is there any truth here that could help me grow? Then what seemed an attack becomes a mirror. Marcus Aurelius said it with the clarity of one who understood the mind. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Reality is neutral, like a blank sheet. What we write on it with our thoughts gives color to our experience. Imagine your mind as a garden. Each thought is a seed. Some are seeds of calm, patience, gratitude. Others are seeds of anger, envy, fear. The garden blooms according to what you water each day. You cannot prevent certain seeds from falling through someone's words and unexpected circumstance, but you can decide which you tend and which you let dry up. Training the mind does not mean avoiding emotions, but learning to recognize that what we think influences what we feel. If you let the weeds of negative judgment grow unchecked, life becomes arid. But if you choose to water thoughts of serenity, perspective, acceptance, your mental garden becomes a refuge. The mind is powerful. It can be your jailer or your ally. It can lock you in anguish or open you to calm. The difference lies in daily training. In that moment, you decide not to feed the spiral of harmful thoughts and choose to cultivate a different gaze. Remember this line from Marcus Aurelius: your mind will take the color of your thoughts. If your thoughts are dark, you will see a shadowed world. If you choose clear thoughts, the world lights up. The external fact may not change, but your experience is always in your hands. Nothing lasts forever. Everything you now have, everything you love, is on loan. Nothing is entirely yours. Not objects, not people, not even your own body. An entire life is a loan from nature, and each day we pay it back little by little. Excessive attachment turns love into fear. When you feel something is yours, when you believe it depends on you to keep it, you live with the anxiety of losing it. Affection mixes with worry, and enjoyment gets contaminated by the constant concern that one day it may be gone. But the reality is that nothing lasts forever. And understanding this is not a reason for sadness, but a liberation. Consider this symbolic story. A grandfather gives his grandson a jar of butterflies. The boy is thrilled. He wants to keep them with him, preserve them forever in that glass. But the grandfather asks him to open the jar and let them fly. The grandson, with a bit of sadness, does so. The butterflies rise into the air, and in that instant he understands what the grandfather wanted to teach. Beauty is not in holding, but in witnessing and letting be. The butterflies were a more intense gift precisely because they could not remain. Seneca expressed it clearly. Nothing belongs to us. Everything is a loan from nature. Seasons pass, days dissolve into night, faces change with time. Trying to stop that flow is like wanting to hold back a river with your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Impermanence is not the enemy of life. It is the very condition that gives it meaning. We love precisely because we know it is not eternal. Each instant gains value because it cannot be repeated. If everything were infinite, nothing would matter. Imagine sand in the palm of your hand. If you clench your fist, most of it escapes. But if you simply open your hand and let it rest, you can hold it longer, feel its texture, enjoy it without fear. So it is with people and experiences. The more you try to control them, the more they slip away. The more you allow them to flow, the more you enjoy them. Letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go is honoring what was, giving thanks and granting it a serene place in memory. Clinging turns it into a burden. Releasing transforms it into teaching and gratitude. Think of the story of someone who decided to donate a very valuable object, one they had guarded for years with zeal. In leaving it in others' hands, they felt not loss but relief. They discovered that what they truly valued was not the object itself, but what they had lived with it, and those memories remained even though the object was gone. Life as a whole is like this, a passage of borrowed gifts we enjoy while we have them. Knowing that nothing lasts forever should not fill us with anguish, but with gratitude. Because each day, each person, each moment that passes through our hands is an unrepeatable gift. Next time you look at something you love, repeat to yourself, "This is alone, and while I have it, I give thanks." That truth does not subtract. It multiplies the intensity with which you live. Calm is a hidden power. The world often confuses strength with shouting, with fists on the table, with force that imposes itself on others. We have been taught that the strong one dominates, raises their voice, bares their teeth. But the Stoics knew it well. True power is not in fury, but in serenity. Calm is invincible, not because it ignores problems, but because it moves through them without losing center. Calm does not need to prove anything, it simply remains. Imagine a doctor in an emergency room. Chaos is all around, cries, blood, desperate relatives, time presses. Yet that doctor breathes deep, thinks clearly, and acts precisely. Their serenity saves lives. If they let themselves be swept away by panic, everything would collapse. Or think of a parent listening to a child in the middle of a tantrum. They could shout, impose, react with the same agitation, but instead they choose to speak with a steady voice, with firm calm. And in that calm, the child finds a mirror in which their storm begins to subside. Calm not only protects, it transforms. Marcus Aurelius summed it up in a luminous line. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Not to answer aggression with aggression, not to let another drag you onto their ground. That is real power, not being manipulated by external noise, but remaining master of yourself. Calm is like a lighthouse. In the middle of the storm, ships do not need the lighthouse to move, or to shout, or to impose itself. They only need it to shine, to remain constant, to keep being a point of reference when everything else wobbles. So it is with serenity, a light that does not need to impose itself to guide. Calm prevents mistakes. When we react with anger or fear, we make hasty decisions we later regret. Serenity, by contrast, gives the space needed to see clearly. Calm inspires others. In the presence of someone serene, others settle, they find refuge. Serenity is contagious, just as panic is. Calm protects. One who does not grow agitated is immune to provocations. One who keeps serenity cannot be manipulated with insults or with flattery. Calm is an invisible shield against others' control, because without calm we are puppets. Our emotions become strings others pull at will. A single insult and you explode, a rumor and you sink. But with calm you cut those strings. No one else directs your life, you do. A merchant lived this lesson in the flesh. During an economic crisis, he lost many clients. His colleagues despaired. Some closed immediately, others drowned in debt. He instead chose serenity. He did not deny the difficulty, but he did not allow fear to take control. He sat down, thought calmly, and found new ways to sell his products. He changed his methods, adapted, spoke to clients differently. In the end, he not only survived, he strengthened his business. Serenity gave him the creativity that anxiety stole from others. Calm is not passivity. It is not standing still doing nothing. It is the inner strength that allows you to act rightly even under pressure. It is the hidden power that needs no noise to be effective. Remember, calm does not make you less strong. It makes you invincible, virtue as the only good. The Stoics repeated it with unshakable conviction. Virtue is the only good. In a changing world where wealth can be lost, fame fades, and power turns to shadow, only virtue remains. What is virtue? For the Stoics, it stands on 4 pillars: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Wisdom is seeing reality as it is, without adornment or deceit. It is distinguishing what depends on you from what does not. It is choosing clearly the straightest path, even if it is harder. Justice is treating others with fairness. It is not taking advantage of anyone, even if you could. Being just even when no one is watching, because the true measure of your character is not in applause, but in your conscience. Courage is moving forward even with fear. It is maintaining integrity amid pressure. It is speaking truth, even if it is uncomfortable. It is not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. And temperance is the art of balance, not letting yourself be dragged by excess, not turning pleasures into chains. It is remembering that nothing external should govern your interior. Imagine being offered a promotion at work, more money, more recognition. But it implies being complicit in an injustice, keeping quiet about something you know harms others. The temptation is strong. Who does not want to advance? But then you remember, what is the worth of success bought with injustice? The Stoic answer is clear. Better to lose an external opportunity than to lose virtue, because virtue lost is never regained. Another example, someone accuses you unjustly. You could lie to slip away, you could bend the truth, but you choose to be honest, even if it complicates the path. That act, though invisible to many, leaves a trace of serenity within you. You go to bed in peace, and that peace is priceless. Seneca said it with luminous clarity. Virtue is the only good. Because everything else can vanish in an instant. A fire destroys your goods, an illness your strength, a rumor your reputation, but virtue, no one can take it from you. Virtue is like a compass. When weather changes, when fog covers the way, when the wind turns, that compass keeps pointing north. You may lose your way for a time, but if you follow the needle, sooner or later you return to the straight path. Acting with virtue may mean losing wealth, power, comfort, but those losses are external. What you gain within, calm, dignity, respect for yourself, is a treasure that does not rust. Think of how often the world has celebrated someone for success, wealth, or fame, only to discover later they lacked virtue. Then everything external collapses. Without virtue, even achievements taste empty, like a banquet served on broken plates. Virtue, on the other hand, makes even the humblest life great. A poor person who is just, wise, brave, and temperate can live more fully than an emperor surrounded by luxury but enslaved by passions. Epictetus put it strongly. A good person does not fear losing what does not belong to him, because he knows the only thing that truly belongs to him is his virtue, his character. Everything else is on loan: health, money, fame, even life itself. Virtue is the only good that remains. Close your eyes and think, what do you prefer, to pile up achievements time will erase, or to cultivate a character that not even death can take away? Remember, your greatest treasure is not outside, it is in you. It is in your virtue, silence in the face of provocation. Not everything deserves a response. In this world where every notification demands a gesture, every comment seeks reaction, every provocation expects a reply, silence has become an almost revolutionary act. We live in times where speed seems more valuable than wisdom. We are invited to respond immediately, to have an opinion on everything, to defend ourselves from any criticism, as if silence were synonymous with weakness. But the Stoics remind us that on many occasions, silence is power. Imagine an argument on social media. An offensive comment appears on your screen. Your first reaction is to type furiously to prove you are right, that you are not someone who can be attacked without response. But what do you really gain? You feed the other's fire. You spend your energy in a fruitless battle. Instead, if you choose silence, you keep your calm intact. The provocation fades because it has no echo. Think also in the street. A stranger throws an insult at you, perhaps from their own frustration or pain. If you answer in kind, you enter their game. You descend to their level, you carry a weight that was not yours. But if you decide not to react, if you simply keep walking serenely, the insult hangs in the air, empty, unable to harm you. Epictetus reminded us, it is impossible for a person to learn what they think they already know. Silence in this sense is openness. When you remain quiet, you not only avoid answering external noise, you also allow yourself to listen, to learn, to observe. Silence opens a space within you where new ideas can flourish, where your mind can see more clearly. Silence is also a shield. Imagine your mind as a lake. If someone throws stones, criticisms, mockery, provocations, and you react with fury, the water stirs, clouds, and reflects nothing. But if you choose not to react, if you let the ripples fade without resistance, little by little the lake returns to calm. And in that calm, you can reflect the truth, the sky, the essential. Silence does not always mean the absence of words. Sometimes it means choosing when to speak, how to speak, and above all, when not to. It means not wasting words on discussions that do not transform, on noises that do not deserve your energy. Silence protects you from the trivial world, but it also connects you with what is deep. Because when you choose to keep quiet in the face of provocation, your attention returns to yourself. You ask, do I really need to respond? What do I lose if I do not? And you discover you lose nothing. On the contrary, you gain peace, strength, self-mastery. Now I want you to close your eyes for a moment and visualize this. Every unnecessary word you have spoken in your life is like a stone in your pockets. They weigh you down. They make you move more slowly. They tire you. Now imagine that, little by little, you let those stones fall to the ground, one after another. Hear the sound of each stone hitting the earth. Feel how your body grows lighter, how your steps become freer. That is the power of silence, freeing yourself from what you never needed to carry. Remember, not everything deserves a response. Sometimes the greatest sign of strength is not to raise your voice, but to choose serenity. Because the one who masters their tongue also masters their mind. The obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the way. These words from Marcus Aurelius summarize one of Stoicism's most powerful teachings. What you see today as a barrier can become the very ground of your growth. Pain, discomfort, trials you would prefer to avoid, all are inevitable teachers. Who has not wished for a life without difficulties, without stumbles, without losses? And yet imagine a life without friction. It would be like a muscle that never trains, weak, powerless, shapeless. Resistance forges strength. The test awakens capacities you did not know were in you. Consider a story both real and symbolic. A person suffers an accident and loses part of their mobility. At first, everything seems over. Days fill with frustration and unanswerable questions. But in the middle of that darkness, an unexpected ray appears. Art. That person discovers painting, a talent never explored before. The accident not only did not destroy life, it opened a new door, a path that would not have appeared otherwise. The obstacle became a beginning. Marcus Aurelius said it clearly, "What stands in the way becomes the way." It is not ornamental philosophy, it is practical truth. Every time you face a difficulty, you have two options. See it as an insurmountable wall that stops you, or as a detour that leads you somewhere unexpected. Nature itself offers a simple analogy. Imagine a river descending a mountain. Suddenly it finds a huge rock blocking its course. Does the water stop? No, it divides, goes around the stone, creates a new channel. Sometimes even more fertile, broader, more powerful. The river does not curse the rock. It does not try to destroy it with fury. It simply embraces it, skirts it, and keeps going. Likewise, our adversities are not the end. They are detours, turns that force us to find resources we did not know we had. The loss of a job can open the possibility of a project more aligned with your values. A heartbreak can push you into a period of self-knowledge that strengthens your character. Even illness can teach you life's fragility and the worth of each instant. Adversity has a transforming effect. It reveals your true strength. When all goes well, anyone can smile, anyone can seem steady. When things twist, when the wind blows against you, when the storm rages, that is when you discover what you are made of. And though it hurts, though the process is not simple, in the end something deeper emerges, the certainty that you can bear more than you imagined. I want to close this reflection with a mini story. An athlete, after years of training, suffers an injury that takes them out of competition. At first, all is bitterness. They have lost what defined their life. But in that enforced silence, they begin to write, to share experiences, to speak to young people going through difficulties. They discover their true purpose was not only to run, but to inspire. The obstacle became a bridge, and what seemed like the end was, in truth, a new beginning. This is the Stoic truth. Do not expect a smooth path free of stones. Embrace each obstacle as an essential part of your journey, because what stands in your way is not your enemy. It is your way. Radical gratitude. Everything is alone. Stoicism invites us to look at life with new eyes, not as owners, but as guests. Everything you enjoy, every person you love, every instant of your existence does not belong to you in property. It is a temporary loan from nature. And when you understand this, a deeper gratitude arises, a radical gratitude. Many give thanks only for what is easy, a sunny day, a success, a caress. But the Stoics propose something more challenging, to give thanks also for what is uncomfortable, what hurts, what interrupts our plans, because even that is part of the teaching, part of your formation as a human being. Imagine the rain. Most prefer the sun, the luminous, warm days. Yet without rain there would be no harvests, no green fields, no life in bloom. Rain, though sometimes inconvenient, is as much a gift as the sun. Why give thanks only for what is comfortable, and not also for what sustains life's balance? Epictetus put it simply, it is not the one who has everything who is happy, but the one who appreciates what he has. True wealth is not in accumulating things, but in knowing how to see what is already before you and value it rightly. The poor person is not the one who lacks possessions, but the one who cannot enjoy the ones they already have. Think of a book someone lends you. You know you cannot keep it forever, so you care for it more attentively. You turn its pages with respect. You savor each chapter with awareness. Life as a whole is like that, a borrowed book. The days given to you are chapters you will one day have to return, and if you live with this outlook, each instant becomes more precious, more worthy of care. Radical gratitude is not naivete. It is not forcing smiles when something hurts, nor denying difficulty. It is understanding that even pain plays a role. Trials shape character, as fire tempers metal or pressure makes diamonds of coal. Being grateful for difficulties does not mean enjoying them. It means recognizing that thanks to them you have grown, learned, strengthened your spirit. Ask yourself, what has taught you more? Easy days or hard ones? Who has shown you your true strength? Those who praised you or those who tested you? If you are honest, you will discover that what you remember most gratefully are not always comfortable moments, but the challenges that made you evolve. Radical gratitude is also an antidote to complaint. When you appreciate what you have, even the smallest things, complaint loses meaning. How can you lament what is missing if what you have is already an immense gift? How can you obsess over what you still want if you can look at your life and find 1,000 reasons to give thanks here and now? I want you to close your eyes for an instant and join a brief exercise. Breathe deeply and think of 3 things from this day that deserve your gratitude. It does not matter whether they were big or small. Perhaps a conversation, a cup of hot coffee, a ray of sun through the window, or even a difficulty that forced you to pause and reflect. Repeat them in your mind as if they were mantras. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. This simple act changes your gaze. Suddenly, what seemed routine becomes extraordinary. What you took for granted reveals itself as a gift, and that gratitude fills you with peace, because it reminds you that although nothing belongs to you, everything you have now is enough. Remember, life does not owe you. Life is lent to you, and by living with radical gratitude each day, even the darkest becomes a reason for thanks. Death as a reminder of urgency. Remember that you will die. Far from being a summons to fear, these words are the most powerful invitation to awaken. In Stoicism, memento mori is not a dark omen, but a compass that points toward what is essential. Because if anything is certain, it is that life has an end, and that certainty, instead of saddening, can become the spark that illuminates every instant. Most people live as if time were infinite. We postpone what matters, believing there will always be a tomorrow. We stash away words of love, projects, dreams, as if we had an unlimited reserve of days to deliver them. And yet, each dawn is a silent reminder. The sand of our personal hourglass keeps falling, even if we cannot see how much remains above. Seneca put it clearly, while we postpone, life speeds by. It does not stop to wait for our doubts, nor fit itself to our calendars. Life goes on, and the only thing we truly possess is this present moment. Imagine someone receiving an unexpected diagnosis. Suddenly, the illusion of endless time breaks. That person, far from sinking, begins to live with a new authenticity. They call friends long forgotten, devote time to what they love, stop postponing what once frightened them. The fear of death turns into energy to live for real. That is the power of memento mori. It transforms urgency into clarity. Death is not an enemy. It is a mirror. It returns the image of how fragile we are, but it also teaches what truly matters. If you know you cannot take anything with you, does it not make more sense to appreciate what you have now? If you accept that every relationship is temporary, is it not wiser to care tenderly for those at your side? If you accept that your time is limited, is it not more urgent to devote it to what ignites your spirit instead of dissipating it in the trivial? Nature reminds us constantly, seasons change, flowers wither, trees let go their leaves. Everything dies to make space for what is new. And we are no different. Every ending in our life, every farewell, every transformation is a rehearsal for that greater truth awaiting us all. The key question is, what deserves your attention? If death is not an accident but part of the natural order, then living with urgency does not mean running faster, but stopping at what is essential. It means not squandering your heart on resentments that weigh you down, nor mortgaging your mind on worries that may never happen. It means recognizing that life's beauty lies in its fragility. I invite you now to a brief reflection. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and ask yourself, if I knew this were my last year, what would I do differently tomorrow? Perhaps you will discover that some things that seem urgent today are not so. Perhaps you will see that you have postponed what truly matters for too long. Perhaps you will feel the call to simplify, to give thanks, to live with more presence. Memento mori is not a burden, it is a gift. It is the reminder that frees us from the illusion of the eternal and pushes us to live life for what it is, a brief loan, but infinite in value if lived consciously. Your peace is worth more than winning an argument. Your peace is worth more than winning an argument. It is a truth that is hard to accept because our pride often speaks louder than our serenity. From childhood, we are taught to be right, to prove it, to defend it before others. But we are seldom reminded that even when we win, what we lose in the process is more valuable: inner calm. Picture a daily scene. At the office, someone receives a hurtful comment from a coworker. They could answer immediately, harshly, to make clear they will not be stepped on. They might even get silent approval from some. Yet what do they gain? Perhaps the discussion intensifies, tension rises, and their own energy is poisoned for hours. Instead, if they choose silence, not because they are weak, but because they choose their peace, they remain serene, preserve clarity, and most importantly, do not carry that toxic emotion for the rest of the day. Another example is as common as social media. How many times does someone get tangled in an endless online argument, replying and defending their point with passion as if the world depended on it? In the end, after hours, that person feels exhausted, irritable, drained. And what did they truly gain? Nothing tangible. The world did not change. The other's opinion did not change. The only things lost were time and serenity. Epictetus put it clearly: it is better to be master of your character than of victory. Being right is not the same as living in peace. You can win a debate, but if you lost calm in the process, there was no true victory. Stoicism teaches you to choose your battles wisely because not all deserve your energy. The best image for this is that of a wise warrior. They do not draw their sword every time they are provoked. They know needless wear can cost more than silence. True strength is not measured by the number of fights won, but by the capacity to remain calm when everything invites reaction. The modern world pushes us to react immediately, to answer messages, respond to comments, defend positions. But the Stoic understands that each reaction is a choice. Not reacting is not surrender. It is exercising a superior power, the power to decide what deserves your energy and what does not. Think for a moment. How many of your arguments were born of ego? Of that need to prove you know more, that you will not allow disrespect, that you are superior? And now ask yourself, was the wear worth it? Would it not have been wiser to keep silence and continue with a tranquil mind? True victory is keeping inner calm. It is walking away from conflict with the sense that you protected what is most valuable, your serenity. It does not mean you should never speak or defend yourself. It means learning to distinguish when to do so and when it is better to let it pass. Seneca summed it up in a line that still resonates: silence is sometimes the most telling answer. Because silence is not always emptiness. Often it is an act of power, a reminder that not everything deserves our voice or our energy. So whenever provocation appears, remember this truth: your peace is worth more than any passing victory. And the truest triumph is choosing not to lose yourself amid the noise. Freedom is within you. He who controls his desires is free. We live convinced that freedom is doing whatever we want, whenever we want. But the Stoics teach a deeper truth. True freedom does not depend on what you can do outside, but on what you know how to govern within. Think for a moment. Are you truly free if your happiness depends on others' opinions? If a negative comment online collapses your mood, or if a passing compliment is the only thing that makes you feel worthy, then you are not your own master. You have handed your freedom to others. In our age, this slavery takes new forms. Before it was iron chains, now it is the invisible chains of the like, of public recognition, of constant comparison. A person posts a photo, anxiously waits for digital approval, and feels that if it does not come, their life is worth a little less. That is the price of depending on the external. Your peace becomes hostage to forces you do not control, and Epictetus said it plainly. No one is free who is not master of himself. And being master of yourself does not mean shutting yourself off from the world, but learning that your joy does not depend on what is volatile, on what shifts with every wind. If your mood moves to the rhythm of others' approval or rejection, you are like a ship without anchor, dragged by any current. Real freedom begins when you recognize that your thoughts, your judgments, and your reactions are yours, and no one can take them from you. The world may criticize, ignore, applaud, but only you decide what value you give to all that within you. Consider a simple example. Someone receives harsh criticism at work. They could sink, convince themselves they are worthless, live with an open wound for weeks. Or they could pause, examine the criticism, salvage what is useful, and let go of the rest, without letting their peace depend on another's judgment. That choice is freedom. Calm does not come from pleasing everyone, because that is impossible. There will always be someone who disagrees, someone who criticizes, someone who projects their own discomfort onto you. Calm arises when you stop living dependent on those voices and begin to listen to your own. When you understand you do not need others' validation to exist with dignity. To recover freedom is to recover the power to choose how to react, how to interpret, how to live. No one can force you to think in a way you do not choose. No one can force you to feel what you do not decide to feed. That is the foundation of Stoicism. The recognition that the mind, when governed, is an impregnable fortress. And here the essential question arises: to whom have you given too much power over your peace today? Perhaps to a stranger online. Perhaps to a boss who is never satisfied. Perhaps even to a memory from the past you have not yet released. If you recognize it, you have already taken the first step to recover your freedom. Because true freedom is not conquered outside, it is conquered inside. And when you find it, nothing and no one can chain you. Discipline is a path to liberation. Discipline is freedom. When we hear the word discipline, many think of harshness, of rigid obligations, of chains that limit life. But the Stoics understood it completely differently. Not as oppression, but as the key to living with peace, clarity, and inner power. Because without discipline, life becomes chaos. We get up late, react at random, run after the urgent, and neglect the important. What seems like freedom, doing what you want when you want, ends up being slavery. Slavery to laziness, to impulses, to momentary whims. Discipline, by contrast, is choosing with wisdom. It is knowing how to renounce the immediate to embrace the valuable. It is not about living rigidly, but about remembering each day what deserves our attention and energy. Imagine someone who decides to rise early to meditate for a few minutes. They do not do it because someone imposes it, nor because it is a strict rule to be obeyed out of obligation. They do it because they have discovered that beginning the day in calm gives them direction, strength, and serenity. That small act of discipline becomes a gift, order instead of chaos, clarity instead of confusion. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Discipline begins in the simplest acts, choosing what is right even if it costs more, choosing silence when noise contributes nothing, choosing silence over falsehood. Discipline is like a channeled river. Water flows with force and constancy when it has a bed to guide it. But a river without direction overflows, destroys, and is wasted. So it is with our energy. When it is disciplined, it becomes power. When it is scattered, it becomes chaos. And here is what is most beautiful. Discipline strengthens self-respect. Each time you do what you said you would do, you prove to yourself you can trust yourself. Each time you choose what truly matters, even if it is harder, you build self-respect. And self-respect is a source of peace that depends on no one else. This is why the Stoics said discipline was not oppression, but the constant reminder of what you want most deeply. Epictetus summed it up. Discipline is remembering what you really want, not what you want in a passing impulse, but what you desire in the depths of your being. Perhaps you want to live with more calm, more clarity, more authenticity. Discipline is the tool that makes it possible. It is not the enemy of freedom, it is the path that builds it, living in harmony with nature. Flow like water. Life is a river that never stops. Everything changes, everything flows, everything transforms. We see it in the seasons. Winter says farewell to give way to spring. Spring blossoms until it becomes summer. Summer ripens into autumn, and autumn gathers itself again into winter. And yet we never hear nature complain about its own cycles. Human beings, by contrast, often resist. We want things to last forever, nothing to end, the good to remain untouched and the uncomfortable to disappear at once. But that resistance is precisely what most tires us. For, as Marcus Aurelius said, what is good for the hive is good for the bee. What happens in the whole of life is part of a broader order, even when we do not understand it. Imagine a tree in the heart of winter. Its branches are bare, its leaves are gone. Someone might think it is dead. But in silence, that tree is strengthening. Its roots go deeper, its energy concentrates, it prepares without hurry to be reborn in spring. It never fights the winter. It does not curse it. It accepts it as part of its natural lot. We too live personal winters, a job that ends, a relationship that fades, a project that has completed its purpose. And yet, instead of accepting, we often cling. We want to extend the inevitable. We want summer to last forever. But life, like nature, moves in cycles, and every closing is the beginning of something new. Think of those moments when you have felt resistance. Perhaps a change you did not ask for, a loss, an unexpected transformation. How much of your suffering came from the situation itself, and how much was born of your fight against the inevitable? To flow does not mean to give up your dreams or stop acting. To flow means not to fight the current of what does not depend on you. Harmony with nature is not passive resignation, but active acceptance. It is learning to say, "This is what is, and I can walk with it." It is looking at a storm and understanding that it also cleans the air. It is accepting an ending, knowing it contains the seed of a new beginning. Seneca said what seems hard to accept becomes necessary to understand with time. And in that understanding, beauty appears. Because even in what we do not grasp, there is an order, a greater sense. Harmony arises when we stop asking, "Why me?" and we begin to ask, "What can I learn from this?" Now, gently close your eyes and imagine you are a leaf floating down a river. You do not try to swim against the current. You do not resist the water's direction. The river carries you soft and steady, moving forward without effort. Feel the lightness of not struggling, the peace of moving at life's own rhythm. Remember, To live in harmony with nature is to live at peace with yourself, because you too are part of that great flow. And when you flow like water, you discover you are never lost. You are always exactly where you need to be. Compassion as strength. Another's pain belongs to me as well. The modern world often confuses compassion with weakness. We think the one who lends a hand, who listens, who stops to care for another is vulnerable or naive. But the Stoics knew compassion is not softness, it is strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What does not benefit the hive does not benefit the bee." He reminded us that we do not live in isolation. We are part of a larger community, and others' suffering, whether we like it or not, touches us too. Another's pain affects the common harmony, and helping another is ultimately helping ourselves. Think of a neighbor in a time of crisis who decides to share a bit of food. Perhaps it does not solve the world's hunger, but in that gesture it keeps hope alive in the community. Or imagine a person who listens to someone in silence, without judging, without interrupting, simply being there. That listening can be more healing than 1,000 words. Compassion, from the Stoic view, is not empty sentimentality. It is action. It is the conscious decision to lighten, even a little, the burden of the one beside you. And that act of service does not diminish your strength. It amplifies it. Because in helping, you expand your circle of peace beyond yourself. Imagine a flame. When you share fire to light another candle, your flame does not go out. On the contrary, the light grows, multiplies, and the space fills with clarity. So it is with compassion, an inexhaustible resource because it does not come from lack, but from inner abundance. Seneca spoke of humanity as a body. If one part grows ill, the whole organism suffers. If we heal a wound, we benefit the whole. And if we choose to harden our hearts before others' pain, sooner or later that indifference wounds us too. Emotionally, compassion frees us from the isolation of ego. It reminds us we are not alone, that life becomes more bearable when we carry burdens together. It does not mean absorbing all the world's pain, but recognizing that, at least in our immediate sphere, we can always lighten someone's load. Perhaps the most important question is, what kind of strength do you want to cultivate? The kind that intimidates, imposes, separates, or the kind that unites, supports, multiplies peace? The Stoic knows that true strength is not hardening the heart, but expanding it. Today, as you listen to these words, think, to whom could you offer a gesture of compassion this week? Perhaps a call, a message, a smile, a shared plate. You do not need to solve anyone's life. It is enough to be present, to remind another they do not walk alone. Because when you practice compassion, you not only benefit the hive, you also strengthen the bee that you are. Forgiveness as liberation. Do not carry invisible chains. Resentment is a silent weight. We do not see it, but we feel it. Sometimes we believe holding on to anger or grievance protects us, as if that hardness were a shield against offense. But in reality, resentment is more like a backpack full of stones. It does not harm the other. It only makes your own walk heavier. The Stoics understood this paradox well. Seneca put it clearly. Anger is an acid that damages more the vessel that contains it than the thing onto which it is poured. Imagine a glass jar full of corrosive liquid. Though you keep it to use against someone, the first to wear down, the first to weaken is you, because you carry it within. Forgiveness, from the Stoic view, is not absolving the other or justifying the wrong. It does not mean what they did was okay. It means something far more important. You no longer permit that wound to govern you. You choose to let go because you understand your peace is worth more than prolonging pain. Think of someone who carried family resentments for years. Every encounter, every memory was tinged with bitterness. One day they decide to let go, not because the other changed, but because they no longer want life defined by that burden. The feeling of lightness arrives like new air. They no longer walk chained to what cannot be changed. Resentment is like drinking poison while expecting the other to fall ill. Forgiveness, instead, is pouring that poison out and choosing to drink clean water. It does not always imply reconciliation. It does not always mean walking again with that person, but it does mean you stop dragging an unnecessary weight. Practically speaking, to forgive is to recognize that the past has already happened and that reliving it in the mind over and over does not change it, only prolongs the pain. Forgiveness cuts that cycle. It opens space so energy can be devoted to building, not reliving. Imagine again the backpack full of stones. Each resentment, each wound unhealed is another stone. Perhaps at first you do not notice, but with the years your step slows, your back bends, your spirit weakens. Until one day, tired, you open the backpack and let those stones fall to the ground. Immediate relief. Not because the stones disappeared from history, but because you no longer carry them. Forgiveness is an act of self-love. It says, "My peace is more important than your fault." It is not minimizing the harm, but not letting that harm continue to govern your life. Today, as you prepare to rest, I invite you to a small exercise. Close your eyes. Visualize a face, a name, someone toward whom you still hold resentment. Do not analyze, do not judge, simply bring that image to mind. Now, breathe deeply, and as you exhale, imagine letting them go. Imagine that figure drifting away like smoke in the air. With each breath, you release a little more of that burden. Perhaps it will not be definitive. Perhaps tomorrow the mind will return to the memory. But each time you release, you come closer to true liberation. Remember, forgiveness is not a gift for the other. It is a gift for yourself. It is removing invisible chains. It is sleeping lighter. It is waking freer. Solitude as fullness. Solitude well carried is fullness. The word solitude often echoes with emptiness, with lack, with abandonment. We think of someone isolated, deprived of company, lost in their own silence. But that is only one face of solitude, the imposed one, the one that arrives uninvited, the one that can feel like a barren desert. Yet there is another, far more powerful, chosen solitude, sought, cultivated. That solitude is not punishment, but oasis. A place to rest from the constant demand to be with others, where external noise dissolves, and in that silence, the most important thing begins to be heard. The inner voice. The Stoics knew this well. Seneca wrote, "He who is content with himself is never alone." He did not speak of arrogance or pride, but of the capacity to be at peace with oneself, to enjoy one's own company, like someone sitting beneath a generous tree in the shade. When we learn to be well with ourselves, the fear of solitude disappears because we discover nothing is missing when we are present with what is essential. Consider an everyday example. A person walks into a cafe alone. At first they feel uncomfortable, the glances, the social habit of always being accompanied. But little by little, with the warm cup in their hands, they begin to observe the flow of people in the street, the gestures of other patrons, the aroma of coffee rising with the steam. They discover that in that apparent solitude there is a world full of details that open up, as if they had always been there but hidden behind the constant noise of conversation. That experience leaves a lesson. Being alone is not being empty, it is being more awake. Another example, a solitary walk at dusk. At first, thoughts spin around pending tasks, what's missing, what worries. But as the pace slows, something different appears. Clarity. Ideas arise, reflections, even solutions to problems that seemed impossible when sought amid noise. Solitude works like this, as an inner lab where silence, memories, and aspirations mingle, and from that process answers are born that would not appear otherwise. The Stoics understood that constant noise from others can be a dangerous distraction. Not because company is bad, but because when we always seek outside, we stop looking within. Solitude instead brings us back to center. It reminds us who we are when there are no eyes on us or voices asking something of us. Think of a deep well. When many throw stones into it, the water disturbs, clouds, ceases to reflect anything. But when the well is calm, without disturbances, it reflects the sky clearly. Our mind works the same. When always exposed to others' noise, it reflects nothing clearly. But when it grows still in solitude, it reflects what is highest and truest in us. The fear of solitude comes from confusing it with abandonment. But chosen solitude is not abandonment, it is reunion. It is recognizing oneself as enough. It is being able to say, "This moment with myself needs no adornments and no witnesses. It is full as it is." Solitude is also a demanding teacher. It forces us to face ourselves, to hear what we usually cover with distraction. Insecurities, doubts, desires. It can be uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is fertile, because only when we are willing to be alone with ourselves do we discover which thoughts truly inhabit us, which desires are authentic, and which are reflections of the outside world. Seneca advised retreating each day, even for a few minutes, for this inner dialogue. Not as a rejection of the world, but as a way to return to it more whole, more conscious. And the truth is that when we practice this form of solitude, we return to others' company with more calm, with less need for approval, with greater capacity to give without demanding. Today, in this moment, as you prepare to rest, I invite you to embrace solitude as fullness, not as lack, not as punishment, but as a safe space that always belongs to you. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and another, and a third even slower, and as air enters and leaves, repeat inwardly, "This moment with myself is enough." Let those words settle like seeds. You need nothing more, nothing is missing. You are with yourself, and that is fullness, purpose as a compass. He who has a why can bear almost anyhow. There is something deeply human in the need for direction. We are not speaking of external maps, nor of perfect plans that mark each step, but of a why that upholds our life from within. When that why exists, even the hardest days have meaning. But when it is absent, even easy moments can feel empty. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire full of wars, intrigue, and plagues, found his strength in remembering his duty, his mission as a servant of the common good. It was not luxuries nor outward triumphs that kept him firm, but clarity of purpose. He himself wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you will not be." That choice is born of knowing where you walk, of having a north that no external obstacle can erase. Think of the example of a teacher. Each day she faces paperwork, forms, difficulties with scarce resources. She could surrender to fatigue or cynicism, but in her heart she keeps a clear purpose: to teach, to transmit knowledge, to plant hope in her students. That purpose transforms what could be an unbearable weight into an act of service that brings her joy even in fatigue. Or the image of a mother who, facing shortages and obstacles, keeps going because her purpose is to give her children a dignified future. The harshness of her path does not disappear, but it turns into strength. What for someone else would be unbearable becomes fuel for her, because her why is greater than her exhaustion. Life without purpose is like an archer shooting arrows at random. He may shoot many, spend energy, even feel the thrill of movement, but none of that brings fullness because there is no clear target to aim at. Instead, when there is a purpose, although the arrows do not always hit the center, each shot has direction, each effort has meaning. The Stoics did not seek grandiose or spectacular purposes. They did not speak of fame or public greatness, but of an authentic and personal purpose. It can be as simple as living with integrity, cultivating virtue in each daily action, caring for those close to you. What matters is not that the purpose is recognized, but that it is true for you. Purpose also transforms adversity. When you know what you live for, each difficulty stops being a wall and becomes a step. Pain does not disappear, but it is re-signified. What once seemed unbearable now is a test that strengthens you, a necessary stage to go further. Purpose turns dark nights into paths, lit by an inner beacon. You may ask yourself, and if my purpose is not clear? The Stoic answer is to be patient and observe. You do not need to discover it in a single instant. Sometimes purpose is not a distant destination, but a daily gesture that repeats and gives you peace, caring for your family, being fair in your work, staying faithful to what you believe is right. Purpose can be small in appearance, but great in impact. What matters is not to live without direction. Because without a why, tiredness comes faster, discouragement settles easily, and life becomes a chain of days without a guiding thread. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are that archer we spoke of. You have the bow in your hands. Before you lies a wide horizon. Would you aim at random? Would you hurl your energy without a course? Or would you prefer, even if it costs you, to choose a clear target, a purpose that gives meaning to every shot? Stoicism invites you to the latter, to choose your target, to define what truly matters to you, and to steer your life toward it. Purpose does not have to be eternal. It can change with time, as the seasons change, but it is always better to walk with a north, even a provisional one, than to remain adrift. And now, before you sleep, I leave you with a question that deserves to accompany you in silence. What is the reason that makes you get up every morning? Perhaps you already know it. Perhaps you are still searching. In any case, let tonight be a reminder that there is no journey deeper than discovering your why. Self-mastery as true freedom. To govern oneself is the greatest power. Freedom is one of the most spoken and sought words by human beings. But we seldom stop to ask what it really means to be free. For many, freedom seems to equal doing whatever one wants, following each impulse, satisfying each desire without limits. But is that freedom or simply another form of slavery? The Stoics were clear. True freedom is not found in the absence of rules, but in mastery of oneself. Because what kind of independence is it when someone is dragged by their anger, their fear, or their disordered desires? Is not the one who cannot control an impulse more enslaved than the one who respects a discipline chosen consciously? Epictetus put it simply yet forcefully. No one is free who is not master of himself. That is the essence of self-mastery, the capacity to hold the reins of your own mind, to choose the direction instead of being carried away by the whirlwind of emotions and whims. Imagine for a moment that you have a powerful horse. Its muscles are strong, its energy immense, but it is without reins, without a rider. It runs out of control, veers toward cliffs, crashes into trees, endangering its own life and that of whoever accompanies it. Now imagine the same horse with a rider, firm yet serene, guiding it calmly, not repressing it, but not letting it get lost either. That is the difference between a governed mind and an ungoverned mind. We see it clearly in daily life. Think of someone who receives an unjust criticism. The immediate impulse is to respond in anger, raise one's voice, defend oneself aggressively. They believe that thus they affirm their freedom, but in truth they are only obeying their rage, being its slave. Now imagine that person breathes, remembers that not everything deserves a reply, and chooses to speak with calm or even not respond. In that instant, they have exercised self-mastery. They were not prisoners of their impulse, they were owners of themselves. Or consider another example, someone who struggles with a harmful habit, perhaps overeating, perhaps procrastination, perhaps consuming something they know harms them. Each time they yield to the impulse, they feel the illusion of deciding, but in reality they decide nothing. They obey a force that dominates them from within. True freedom will arrive the day they can look that habit in the face and say, "I choose differently." Self-mastery is not a prison, though many confuse it with rigidity. It is not repressing, nor denying, nor pretending that desires or emotions do not exist. It is recognizing them, accepting them as part of the human condition, but not allowing them to drive your life. The wise ruler listens to the people but does not kneel before whichever voice shouts the loudest. Likewise, the free human listens to their emotions but decides from a deeper place. Marcus Aurelius in his meditations reflected each night on the importance of keeping the mind clear and governed. He knew that an emperor who does not govern himself is a slave to his passions and therefore a danger to his people. We, although we do not govern an empire, govern something even more essential, our own life. And that task requires the same discipline, the same clarity, the same serenity. Self-mastery not only gives us freedom, it also gives us peace. Because when your mind is under your control, external storms do not sweep you away. You can lose a job, face a conflict, suffer rejection, and still keep your center. It is not that you stop feeling. It is that you decide how to respond. And that choice is the core of true independence. Now, close your eyes for a moment and imagine you hold reins that are soft yet firm. Before you is your mind, powerful like a horse, brimming with energy. Perhaps at times it is bolted, carrying you down paths of anger, fear, or desire. But today you decide to take those reins, not to break its strength, but to direct it where you truly want to go. See it clearly. You are the rider. You choose the direction. Feel the calm of not being dragged, the assurance of owning your path. And remember this Stoic truth. The highest freedom does not lie in always doing what you desire, but in desiring what you consciously choose. Character is destiny. You are what you do every day. Our destiny is not written in an instant. It is not determined by the grand dramatic turns of life, nor by the heroic decisions we rarely make. Destiny is written in the small, in the everyday, in what we repeat so often that we no longer notice. The Stoics knew it. We are not our intentions, but our habits. You may desire to be a just person, but if in small things you act unjustly, what weighs is not your desire, but your practice. You may dream of being wise, but if each day you feed trivial thoughts, your mind withers instead of flourishing. Marcus Aurelius summed it up in a clear phrase. Your life is what your thoughts make it. And we could add, your character is the sum of your acts, of what you decide each day, of what you choose when no one is watching. Imagine a person who dedicates only 10 minutes a day to exercise. It may seem little, almost insignificant. But those minutes, repeated for months and years, turn into a strong body, into resilient health. In contrast, someone who yields to laziness each day, who always postpones until tomorrow and carves into themselves a destiny of fragility and wear. Think of lying. A small lie seems harmless, an excuse, a hidden detail, an omitted truth. But each lie opens a furrow, and soon the person finds themselves trapped in a web of falsehood they wove with their own hands. They did not become dishonest overnight. They sculpted themselves that way with each small decision. Character is not formed with speeches or intentions, but with repetitions. It is like a statue carved by the blow of a chisel. Each blow is small, barely a gesture, but all of them together create the final form. Thus each habit, each word, each reaction you choose chisels your soul and shapes who you are. The Stoics did not speak of virtue as an abstract idea, but as daily training. Seneca said it is not about proclaiming that one is wise, but about acting each day like someone practicing wisdom. It is not about a glorious instant, but about an entire life of small victories. And here is the paradox. We often underestimate the power of the small. We believe what counts are the grand exploits. But your character is not revealed in an extraordinary moment, but in the ordinary. Not in how you respond to a monumental disaster, but in how you treat the person who serves you coffee, how you speak when no one records your voice, how you manage your time when no one is watching. If you sow seeds of discipline each day, you reap serenity. If you sow seeds of gratitude each day, you reap joy. If you sow seeds of anger or resentment each day, you reap a bitter heart. There is no mystery. Your destiny is the harvest of what you constantly sow in your character. Remember as well that character not only shapes your life, but that of those around you. You can leave material wealth, you can leave pretty words, but what you truly bequeath to the world is your character. Others will remember how you made them feel, what example you gave, what footprints you left with your actions. Ask yourself then, what am I carving today in the statue of my life? Am I sculpting serenity, fortitude, temperance? Or am I letting the blind chisel of habit turn me into someone I do not want to be? The good news is that each day offers a new stroke of the chisel. No matter what you did yesterday, today you can begin to sculpt differently. Destiny is not an unchangeable block. It is a work in progress. Now, as you breathe, think of one habit of yours, big or small, that today is shaping your character. Do not judge it yet, only observe it. And then ask yourself, what habit today is sculpting the future I desire? Perhaps the answer invites you to reaffirm a path. Perhaps it invites you to change course. What matters is to remember that it is not about waiting for a great moment, but about choosing here and now to give one small stroke of the chisel in the right direction. Serene self-sufficiency. The less one needs, the freer one is. We live in a time where we are told that to be happy we need more objects, more experiences, more recognition. But the Stoics invite us to look in another direction, within. True freedom is not born from accumulating, but from letting go. Unbounded desire is an invisible chain. There is always something more we would like, something else we lack, something else we believe we need. And in that endless chase, we forget that the essential is already within reach. Seneca said it clearly. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Wealth, for the Stoics, was not a matter of possessions, but of sufficiency. Whoever knows how to enjoy what they have, even if it is little, lives in abundance. Whoever lives enslaved to what they lack, even if they own much, lives in scarcity. Think of someone who devotes all effort to obtaining luxuries, and when they finally get them, they discover that satisfaction lasts little. Soon they need something new, bigger, more expensive, more exclusive. Their entire life is a race that never ends. Now think of another person who discovers that a simple day with family, a shared meal, a deep conversation gives more fulfillment than any costly object. That person has grasped the secret of self-sufficiency. Living well does not require much. It only requires learning to value. The Stoics practiced exercises of voluntary poverty. For some days they ate the minimum, dressed in simple clothing, and slept on the floor. They did not do it to punish themselves, but to train the mind, to remind themselves that happiness does not depend on luxuries, that they could live well with little, that the essential was always within reach. It is like an oil lamp. It does not need oceans of fuel to shine intensely. With a few drops, it lights the darkness. So too the self-sufficient soul. It does not require great riches to shine, because it finds intensity in the simple. Self-sufficiency does not mean isolation or indifference. It is not about rejecting the world, but about not becoming its slave. It does not mean failing to enjoy what comes, but not depending on it to be at peace. You can enjoy a banquet, but if tomorrow there is only bread and water, you are still all right. True independence is interior. When your peace depends on always having more, it is never secure. But when your peace depends on needing less, no one can take it from you. Imagine opening a drawer full of objects accumulated over years. Many you no longer remember, others you saved just in case. Some you never used. Were they really necessary, or was it only the impulse to possess? Self-sufficiency consists in clearing the soul of those invisible objects as well. Expectations, excessive desires, needless comparisons, and abundance lies not in what you possess, but in what you can enjoy, and to enjoy you do not need much. A quiet morning, a deep breath, a glass of fresh water, a hug, a lovely memory, all this, if you look with attention, is already wealth. Serene self-sufficiency invites us to reorder life. Fewer external dependencies, more inner strength. Less need to have, more capacity to be. Now do a small exercise. Look around you. Perhaps you are in your room, perhaps in a quiet space. Observe a simple detail, the softness of a blanket, the calm of the silence, the rest of your body. Recognize it as enough. Give thanks for the small, because in that silent gratitude, true wealth is born. Joy in simplicity. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. We live surrounded by stimuli, by objects, by infinite options. And yet never before have we felt so tired, so noisy, so confused. Excess, though it seems a privilege, becomes a weight. It distracts us, fills us with things, but empties the spirit. The Stoics understood clearly, true joy is not in accumulating, but in simplifying. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Wealth consists much more in enjoying little than in possessing much." Excess clouds, simplicity clarifies. Think about it. A table crowded with dishes does not always give more pleasure than a fresh loaf shared. A closet full of clothes does not always give more joy than a comfortable garment you truly appreciate. A life full of noise is not always richer than a quiet afternoon in silence. Simplicity is not lack. It is clarity. It is returning to the essential, to what truly matters. When we eliminate the unnecessary, what remains shines more brightly. Imagine two rooms, one filled with piled-up objects, the other uncluttered, where each thing has a purpose. In the first, you feel overwhelmed. In the second, you breathe deeply and find calm. So it is in the soul. When we accumulate desires, comparisons, and demands, everything becomes heavy. But when we choose the simple, the mind opens like a cleared field. Examples of that joy in the simple are in the everyday, cooking a basic meal with care and sharing it with someone. Walking barefoot on the grass and feeling the cool touch as a gift. Watching the sky at sunset without needing anything more. The Stoics practiced this conscious gaze upon the simple. They did not reject pleasures, but they did not turn them into chains. They knew that what makes a moment special is not outer abundance, but inner attention. Joy multiplies when we stop chasing what is unnecessary. Because the unnecessary never satisfies, it always wants more. In contrast, the essential is inexhaustible. A friend, a book, a moment of calm, a deep sigh. Are these not the memories we keep at the end of the day? Simplicity also liberates. When you do not depend on having it all, you realize you already have enough. When you do not need to impress, you discover the peace of being. When you do not chase the extraordinary, you begin to see the beauty of the ordinary. A simple life is not a renunciation. It is a choice of real abundance. It is the art of discovering that the small can also be great, that the tenderness of a gesture is worth more than the ostentation of a luxury, that the serenity of a quiet afternoon surpasses any noisy spectacle. And now I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you walk through an open field. You carry nothing with you. No backpacks, no burdens, no worries. It is just you and the soft breeze that caresses your face. Feel the lightness of moving without weight, the freedom of needing nothing more. That is the joy of simplicity, a reminder that life, when lived with clear eyes, is already enough. The value of patience. Time is an ally, not an enemy. We live in an age that glorifies immediacy. Everything is a click away, an instant away, a notification away. We have learned to confuse speed with effectiveness, haste with importance, anxiety with progress. And yet never have we been so tired, so scattered, so empty. Patience in this accelerated world seems almost a forgotten luxury. But for the wise, for those who have understood the nature of life, patience is not passivity, it is power. Seneca expressed it clearly. Nothing happens to anyone suddenly. The seed does not become a tree overnight. The river does not carve its bed in a day. Character is not formed by one single decision, but by thousands of small acts repeated. Think of the everyday. A farmer plants his seeds in the soil. He does not unearth them each morning to check if they have grown. He does not grow impatient because in the first week he sees no fruit. He knows that time is part of the process. He knows that patience is as necessary as water and sun, or a mother teaching her child to read. She does not expect perfection on the first try. She accompanies, corrects gently, encourages when frustration appears. And it is that patience that sows confidence and love in learning. Impatience, by contrast, wears us down. It steals our energy because it pushes us to fight against the natural rhythm of things. We want immediate results, instant transformations, rewards without delay. And when they do not arrive, we feel frustration. But it is not reality that hurts us, it is our impatience. Patience, in contrast, nourishes, because it reminds us that each process has its own time, and that to hasten what is not ready is not only useless but harmful. Fruit plucked before it ripens never reaches its full flavor. The Stoics understood this as a natural law. What comes too soon is easily lost. Patience is not resignation, it is trust in the order of the universe. One of the most beautiful images to understand this is Japanese bamboo. For years after being planted, nothing is seen on the surface. It seems that nothing is happening. But beneath the ground, the bamboo is strengthening its roots, spreading, preparing, and one day suddenly, in a matter of weeks, it grows several meters. It was not an instant miracle, it was accumulated patience that made that invisible growth possible. So it is with our life, with our projects, with our character. There are times when nothing seems to advance, when we feel stuck, and yet those are the moments that strengthen our invisible roots. Patience allows us to hold on until the time to bloom arrives. Anxiety about time is born of an illusion, believing we can control the clock, but the clock never stops, never goes back, never adapts to our desire. Patience is accepting that time has its own flow, and that within that flow we can find serenity. When we learn to wait without anguish, we discover that time ceases to be an enemy and becomes an ally. Each day is not an obstacle between us and our goal. It is part of the preparation to reach it. Patience also teaches us to see differently. It reminds us that we do not need to have everything now, that each thing arrives in its moment, and that in the meantime we can enjoy the process. Life is not only about arriving, but about walking calmly. And now I invite you to a simple exercise. Imagine a river that flows slowly. Watch how its waters move without hurry, yet without stopping. It knows that sooner or later it will reach the sea. It does not need to rush because its destination is assured. Breathe with that rhythm, soft, steady, patient, and so too is your life. Each step, each wait, each pause is part of the journey. Patience does not delay you. It gives you the strength to arrive. Consistency is the secret of progress. Greatness is the sum of small gestures repeated. We often seek radical changes, sudden transformations, immediate achievements. We believe success arrives in an instant, that exemplary lives are built by a single stroke of luck or will. But the wise have always known, true strength is not in the intensity of one day, but in the consistency of many. Marcus Aurelius summed it up in a simple, powerful teaching. If it is possible, do it. If it depends on you, do it well. He does not say, do it all at once, nor do it perfectly on the first try. He says, do it today, do it as well as you can, and repeat it tomorrow. That humble, quiet repetition is the seed of all greatness. Imagine someone who dedicates 15 minutes a day to writing. Only 15 minutes. A time anyone can find, even in the busiest schedules. At first, it is just a few pages. In a month, there are dozens. After a year, when they look back, they discover a book in their hands. They did not arrive there by a heroic effort in a single day, but by the sum of hundreds of small, consistent steps. Or think of a person who decides to walk each morning. At first, it seems insignificant, a brief stroll, a few minutes outdoors, but over time, that habit shapes the body, strengthens the heart, gives mental clarity. Years later, they enjoy solid health that was not built with miracle diets nor extreme training, but with the simplicity of consistency. Consistency is an invisible force. It is not always noticeable in the moment because progress is so slow we barely perceive it. But one day, almost without realizing it, results appear clear and firm. It is like the drop of water falling on stone. It does not split it in a day, but with time transforms it completely. Human beings tend to overestimate what we can achieve in a day and underestimate what we can reach in a year. We want immediate results, and when we do not see them, we get frustrated and give up. But what truly bears fruit is quiet repetition, the small step that becomes a path. The Stoics understood it well. Character is forged in daily acts, not in grand gestures. Seneca said that life is measured in the details of day to day, not in great declarations. Each time you choose to rise a little earlier, to keep your word, or to take a step toward your purpose, you are writing the story of who you are. And here another truth appears. Consistency not only builds external achievements, it also strengthens something deeper, confidence in yourself. Because each time you keep what you promise yourself, you reinforce the idea that you are someone you can trust. And if you can trust yourself, you can face the world with more calm, security, and serenity. Consistency is, in essence, an act of self-love. It is not about imposing impossible burdens on yourself, but about sowing small seeds that over time become forests. Now I invite you to a simple exercise. Think of something small you can repeat tomorrow. It does not have to be huge nor heroic. It can be writing a single sentence in a notebook, walking 10 minutes, drinking a glass of water on waking, giving thanks before sleeping. Choose a small but real gesture and repeat it each day. That seed with time can transform your life more than you imagine. Consistency is humble, quiet, and often ignored, but it is the secret of all true progress. Courage in the face of uncertainty. Fear is natural, but it must not rule you. Uncertainty is life's only certainty. None of us knows what will happen tomorrow, not even within an hour. We can plan, calculate, anticipate, but existence always holds a degree of mystery beyond our control. For some, this lack of guarantees becomes an inexhaustible source of anguish. For the Stoics, in contrast, it was an opportunity, the daily invitation to practice courage, because bravery does not mean the absence of fear. Fear is human, inevitable, even necessary. It alerts us to dangers, reminds us of our fragility, keeps us attentive. The problem arises when we let fear make our decisions. Then we are no longer owners of ourselves, but prisoners of our doubts. Epictetus put it clearly: difficulties show what we are, not because they reveal our limitations, but because they give us the chance to demonstrate our inner strength. Courage is that quiet force that impels us to act even when we tremble inside. Imagine a young person deciding to undertake a journey. They do not know all the roads, do not have a perfect map, nor do they know with certainty what they will find. But they feel the need to take the first step. Many would call them reckless, the wise, in contrast, would call them brave, because they understand that clarity is not obtained before walking, but while walking. The path appears beneath their feet, step by step, like the fog that lifts only as you advance. Walking in the fog is one of the best images of what it means to live with courage. You do not see the end only a few meters ahead, but those few meters are enough. You move forward, and in moving forward, a little more of the path appears. You never have the complete view, but you always have enough to keep going. So is life. We will never see the whole picture with certainty. We will never know whether the decision we make is perfect. But we can take a firm step, trusting that the next will reveal itself afterward. Courage is not measured by grand heroic gestures, but by the daily choices we make in the face of the unknown. A person who admits their feelings despite fear of rejection. Someone who leaves a job that is destroying them inside, without yet having a complete plan. A mother raising her children in a world that offers no guarantees of the future. All of them are examples of everyday bravery. Life never offers absolute certainties, only probabilities. And even so, the wise invite us not to be paralyzed, waiting for impossible assurances. To act is always a risk, but it is also always an act of freedom. Bravery does not eliminate fear, it accompanies it. The heart pounds, the hands sweat, the mind doubts. And yet, the step is taken. That is the seed of freedom. Because each time you choose to act despite fear, your world expands. You discover that you are larger than you thought, more capable than you imagined. The Stoics knew that fear is an adversary that never entirely disappears. That is why the training does not consist of eradicating it, but in learning to walk beside it without letting it dominate you. Like a traveler who hears the murmur of a river while moving forward, fear can be present, but it does not set the course. And here I invite you to a personal reflection. What decision have you been postponing out of fear? Perhaps it is a hard conversation, a change in your life, an action you know is necessary but hold back because you do not have every guarantee. Ask yourself, what would happen if you took only the first step today? Not the full leap, not the final solution, only one step. Courage is practiced like this, little by little, and each brave step becomes a solid stone on the path of your freedom. The power to choose your reaction. No one can harm your soul without your consent. The The Stoics repeated again and again this fundamental truth. It is not events that disturb us, but the judgment we make of them. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." The world can throw difficulties, insults, accidents, delays, injustices at you, but none of those things has the intrinsic power to wound your inner self. What hurts is not the event itself, but the interpretation your mind chooses to give it. And here lies the key. You can choose your response. Think about it. An unjust criticism. Two roads open. On the first, you react with anger, defend yourself vehemently, and the rage lingers in your body for hours or days. On the second, you observe, recognize the injustice, decide not to give it more space, and continue on your way in calm. The fact was the same, the inner outcome completely different. Another example. You are trapped in a traffic jam. One person lives it as torture, bangs on the wheel, grows impatient, wears themselves out. Another uses those minutes to listen to an audiobook, breathe deeply, or simply watch the sky. The traffic is the same, but the experience is different. That is what Epictetus called the last freedom. Choosing how to react to the inevitable. No one can take it from you. They can remove possessions, titles, even health, but your ability to choose your attitude is always in your hands. Imagine your mind as a walled fortress. The world fires arrows, insults, obstacles, the unexpected. But those arrows only penetrate if you open the gate. Otherwise, they stay stuck outside, harmless. The wall is you, your awareness, your capacity to say, "This does not enter. This does not define who I am." Developing this inner fortress requires practice. It is not about repressing emotions, but about training the distance between stimulus and response. In that tiny, almost invisible space lies your freedom. Between what happens and what you decide to do with it, your most authentic power is born. Each reaction is, in truth, a choice, and each choice molds your character. Will you respond with anger or with serenity? With resentment or with understanding, with despair or with patience? What you choose not only defines the moment, but who you become over time. This idea can sound demanding. Does that mean I must always react well? No, it means you always have the possibility to react better. No one does it perfectly. We all fall into automatic responses. But each time you manage to pause and tell yourself, "I can choose another way," you strengthen your wall. Life is, to a great extent, training in reactions. We do not control the script, but we do control how we act in the play. And that how is what in the end determines our peace or our storm. Now I invite you to a brief exercise. Think of a recent situation that was difficult for you. It might have been a criticism, a delay, a misunderstanding. Relive it for a few seconds. Notice the emotion it stirred in you, and now repeat mentally, "I choose how to respond." Feel the relief that comes from knowing that, although you cannot change what happened, you can decide what to do with it within you. That reminder is a key that opens the door to your serenity, because no one, absolutely no one, can harm your soul without your permission. Rest as a virtuous act. To rest is also to live. We live in an age that glorifies constant action, unceasing productivity, boundless performance. Many feel guilt when they rest, as if stopping were a sin against time. But the Stoics, with their clear view of life, taught the opposite. Rest is an essential part of duty. Seneca reminds us, "He who has little rests better than he who fears losing much." The mind that lives in unbridled ambition never manages to rest. By contrast, the one who knows that life does not depend on having it all, but on needing less, finds in sleep a clean and serene refuge. Rest is not a loss, it is an investment in clarity. Think of the soldier preparing for battle. If he does not sleep, if he pushes himself beyond his strength, at dawn he will be weak, clumsy, vulnerable. His lack of rest does not make him brave, but reckless. The same happens with us. Sleeping is not evading life, but equipping ourselves to live it better. The worker understood it too, discovering that piling up endless overtime does not always produce more. There is a point at which fatigue clouds the mind, errors multiply, and quality is lost. Rest, by contrast, restores precision, creativity, and balance. Nature itself teaches it. Day does not exist without night, the seed does not sprout without winter, the heart does not beat without alternating contraction and relaxation. To pretend to live always in tension is to go against the order of the cosmos. Imagine a wooden bow. If you keep it always taut, sooner or later it breaks. Its strength does not lie in being permanently stretched, but in alternating tension and rest. In the same way, our spirit needs that rhythm, wakefulness and rest, action and withdrawal. Rest is also an act of justice toward yourself. Just as you would not deny food to the body, you should not deny rest to the soul. Sleeping is not fleeing from duty, it is honoring it. Because tomorrow, thanks to this rest, you will be able to give your very best. The Stoics did not conceive of sleep as distraction, but as discipline. Marcus Aurelius in his meditations reminded himself that waking should be immediate and firm, like a soldier who answers the call of duty. But to be able to wake like that, he also had to have respected the prior rest. Deep sleep is like a river that cleanses. It carries away fatigue, tension, the invisible burden that piled up during the day, and it returns us lighter, clearer, better prepared to face tomorrow. Now I invite you to feel this act of rest as a virtue in itself. It is not laziness, it is not surrender. It is the art of caring for what sustains your life, your mind, your body, your spirit. Do a brief visualization with me. Close your eyes. Imagine that every muscle in your body is holding a stone. Your shoulders, your arms, your legs, all carry an invisible weight. With each breath, release one of those stones. Let them fall gently to the floor. Notice how your body becomes heavier on the bed, more surrendered, more at peace. Feel how each exhale is permission to rest. Each inhale reminds you that you live. Each exhale invites you to let go, to rest. Now you know is also to live. Closing and farewell, truths that accompany you. Sleep in peace, because your soul already knows the way. We have walked together for 3 hours, a journey made of silences, reflections, and ancient truths that are still alive today because they speak directly to the human heart. Before I say goodbye, I want to offer you a review, not as an exam, but as a gentle reminder of the seeds we have sown tonight. You have remembered that the present is the only real territory, and that every instant is an unrepeatable gift, that worrying about what you do not control is like trying to stop the rain with your hands. Useless and exhausting, you have understood that your mind is a powerful filter. What you think shapes what you feel, and in that choice, your freedom is at stake. You also saw that nothing lasts forever. And far from being a reason for fear, that truth is a key to gratitude. What you have today is a precious loan. Enjoy it before life claims it back. You learned that calm is a hidden power, stronger than any shout or violence, because whoever keeps serenity cannot be manipulated. That virtue is the only true good. The compass that always points inward, even when the whole world is shaken. You discovered the importance of silence, of forgiveness, of compassion that multiplies strength instead of subtracting it. You understood that real freedom does not depend on external chains, but on your capacity to govern yourself, to not hand your peace over to the opinion of others. You recognize that discipline is not oppression, but the channel that allows your river to flow with force and direction. that living in harmony with nature is accepting that everything has cycles. There are winters that strengthen and springs that awaken. On the inner journey, you embraced solitude as fullness, purpose as a compass, and character as destiny. You saw that serene self-sufficiency is wealth, and that simplicity, far from impoverishing, multiplies joy. Finally, in this block of practical wisdom, you remembered that patience is strength, constancy is progress, courage is acting even in the fog, and that reaction is always a choice. You also discovered that rest, this very rest into which you now sink, is a virtuous act, as sacred as any action of the day. All these truths are not distant theories. They are tools for living with more peace, with more strength, with more humanity, and the most beautiful thing is that they are already within you. You do not need to run after them. Just remember, just practice them little by little in daily life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Life is opinion." And with that, he invited us to understand that your inner world has the power to transform your outer world. The way you interpret, react, and choose each day is what ultimately defines your life. Now, to take our leave, I want you to imagine one last scene. You are in your room, resting deeply. Little by little, a golden light begins to peek through the window. It is dawn. That gentle brightness enters in silence, bathing the space in calm. There is no hurry. There is no noise. Only the promise of a new beginning. Each day, like this dawn, is a fresh opportunity to practice what you have learned tonight. Allow that inner light to envelop you. Feel that you are ready to release the day that ends and trust the night that embraces you. Breathe deeply one last time with me. Inhale calm. Exhale every worry. Now rest. Because resting is also living. And while you sleep, your soul will continue remembering what has been learned. That calm is invincible. That virtue is your treasure. That your peace is worth more than any victory. And that the greatest freedom is within you. Sleep in peace because your soul already knows the way.